What's up, Wisconsin? Welcome back to the Inside Wisconsin Show here on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. By the way, subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. The podcast side, just make sure you download those when they come out. Trevor Thomas, John Anderson, J.A. This guy's got some history in your world, mine too, but your world, our guest today. Yeah, you take it. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, what do you want to know? He's a soundtrack of so many great events. He's a voice of so many great calls. Kevin Harlan, Green Bay, kind of native, right? Milwaukee kid, a little St. Louis, raised in Green Bay, high school in Green Bay, went off. But, like he is ours, even though he's the most he's ever done. From what I can tell, the Packers, right? A couple of preseason games, Chiefs, Timberwolves, but he's ours collectively. So that whenever we see him on we see him on TV doing the NFL, we hear him on TNT and TBS doing the NBA. Westwood One, I don't know if people are in the car listening on Monday nights, depending on what your work schedule is, but you listen to him. And he is a preeminent voice in broadcasting as a play-by-play man. And again, it's like so many things, right? How many degrees of cheese does it get him back home? One. There he is. He's a Green Bay guy.
I'm pretty sure he was on the radio call for the Packers Super Bowl in 2012. I can't wait to ask him about that because I know.
Yeah. I think he's done like 13 or 14 in a row. So that would put him back there, And what's crazy is where most people, I think, knew that and maybe identify him now with these national platforms. It was very funny. Like when I was in school at Missouri, he called our football and basketball games, which was crazy because before that, Bob Costas did them. Like it was the Missouri history of people that have had that gig is really kind of funny. And now it's a wonderful man named Mike Kelly. But anyway, Kevin was there, and which is kind of screwy. We'll have to ask him because he went to KU. So there's no way the guy should have been allowed in the building, let alone being the voice of the Tigers.
Yeah, that was I had asked you that before we jumped on. I'm surprised he was even allowed to do that, knowing the history here.
But as you know, when it comes to this, I'm very tolerant. I let these things go. It rarely upsets me.
Keep telling
I'm
yourself
not bothered
that,
by this at all.
No.
I'm sure everything's fine. Everything's fine.
I think this is the third lowercase K, uppercase U guy that we've had on the program, and you've done well. That's 74 episodes, and only 3 have made it through. So nicely done.
And just a reminder for everybody at home: it's Kansas with a small K because it's neither a proper name nor a proper place. Should always know that.
One other thing before we jump in with him that I'm excited to ask him. I'm curious to know when he's calling sports that have something to do with him, right? So back to the Packers Super Bowl victory in 2012. Partial, right? He obviously wants them to win. At least I think he does. And you and I have talked about this, knowing full well you were on SportsCenter. Speaking of KU, the night that KU won the national championship for basketball, and I asked, how do you do that, right? Because I know the power of 10,000 suns, as you've mentioned, for them. But on the flip side of that, what happens when it's exciting? Like, how would you handle it if the Packers won the Super Bowl and there you are on the SportsCenter desk?
Yeah, which I think I've done. Right? I was working when they
were you?
Yeah, when I worked there. Listen,
is there a difference then, right?
It's the same way. No, you just go out and do it. I live and die with them every week when they play, and what it is. But no, you just go out, you do the job, right? Like I don't know, you train yourself or whatever it is. You just go do the job. Every once in a while, you let one slip through, But for the most part, you just do the job. And I don't think it's bad every once in a while leave. At least I think where I'm at in SportsCenter, there's more wiggle room in sports in general.
Sure.
But every once in a while, I don't think it hurts to let people know you are attached to something, that you have a passion for the sport and where it is. I don't think you can get too caught up in it. And Wisconsin teams are generally safe, right? Nobody's going to go overboard like that guy's a Brewers homer. If you're a Yankee guy, if you're a Patriot guy, these teams that have had huge success, at least in the 25 years I've been at ESPN, then people are like, oh, God, just what we need, another Yankee homer. Oh, my God, could we get away from the Red Sox? But in some ways, Green Bay and Wisconsin is sort of tame. Like I can get away with a little Missouri stuff because people are like, well, they're not really a threat. Like, okay. Whereas if you're always stoking Alabama, like, again, I go back to the thing. Would you know that Reese Davis went to Alabama?
No.
Probably not. unless you saw the tape of him storming the field one time when he was in college and they made a big kick to beat Auburn. But yeah, so you do the job. You do the job.
I get it.
And
And if
nobody
it
does
was
the
easy,
job better than this guy.
Yeah, he's in right between the eyes.
There
All
you
right,
go.
we're jumping in inside Wisconsin with Kevin Harlan.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Aaron's Company, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us. John and I have talked about this. The second you hear him talk, you know exactly who he is. Kevin Harlan. We are taking ownership of you here in Wisconsin, Kevin. I know you've been some places, but you're ours. Kevin Harlan, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks, Trevor. John, great to be on with you. Grew up in Green Bay. So, Trevor, I know you're in De Pere, and John has roots in the state, of course. And together, the three of us are Scotties, and we are very proud of that. And
I feel like this could be the booth right now. We should plot how to knock off Larrabee and McCarron and just take over.
Let's do it.
We could do.
I was just out with Wayne a couple days ago. So I've known Wayne since I was like 18 years old when he was in Kansas City calling the Chiefs. So Wayne is one of my early idols in this business. And John, what a pleasure to be on with you. And Trevor, thank you so much for having me.
So you are the third Harlan we've had on this show. We went Olivia, then we went Bob and you. I want to know, do we have the order of importance right? I feel like that's probably the right order.
Well, my dad, the most expensive was certainly Olivia. But my dad is, I'm glad you've had him on. And I remember when you were setting that up and of course he's watched you forever, John. So he knows all about you and your career. And I think that was actually a very comforting thing for him. And I hope he was as entertaining as I know he can be. He tells some great stories over the years.
What I find is amazing, and I'm sure you do this all the time, Kevin, is how easy it is to connect to people in Green Bay, no matter who they are. Like, here's the guy who is the guy that, I don't know, save the Packers the right word, but the guy who really dragged the Packers into the modern day NFL. And he lives down the street from the Grabowskis, who couldn't be bigger friends than my mom and dad. And you're like, how does that but you could do that with a guy that worked at Fort Howard and, the mayor. Like, it just, that there's something about the city that everybody is just, it's not ancestral, but it's a very tight sewing circle. Don't you think?
Well, you both know this as clearly as anybody, but it was him going literally door to door and standing outside Fort Howard and asking for their votes for this half-cent tax increase that could pay for this addition and kind of reclaiming some momentum financially because they really didn't have it. In fact, as my dad may have told you, the treasurer came in at the end of one season late in the 90s and said, Bob, we're going to run out of money in about 2 years. We cannot keep up with free agent signing and everything else. And so they hatched this plan to expand Lambeau and make it a destination as opposed to just a football stadium in the fall and early winter. And he had many people that cussed him out, would not make eye contact, but he kept at it and his persistence paid off. He always said, I'm not the CEO and the president. I'm just the person in the seat as more of a gatekeeper, entrusted with moving this franchise forward. He never looked at it as his franchise, clearly. He was voted there by the executive committee. It was an honor to get that position, but one that came with a lot of responsibility and probably no turbulent time then at that time to go and literally see people that he knew, places that he had visited in the past and was hoping for their support. And it was close. And the untold story about that whole thing was that they were not sure that they were organized enough the day they were going to vote. And my dad said, well, when would be the next possible time? And they said, down the road, and it would be on September 11th, 2001.
Right.
And that was going to be the backup day to vote if they didn't feel organized to put it in front of the people to vote in Brown County.
When this happens, though, you're an adult. You're totally cognizant of your dad and his position. But when you're growing up and you're 10, 11, like, He's your dad, but are you aware of what he does and the importance of what he does?
He was with the baseball Cardinals in St. Louis as their PR media relations director back during the Flood and Brock and Gibson and Cepeda years, MacArthur. And I used to go down to training camp at Al Lang Field in St. Petersburg when they had training camp and spring training. And he would have all the boys fly down. And I was the oldest, and I was about 6 or 7 at the time. So my mom would put me on a plane. I'd fly down there. He'd pick me up at the airport. And so I got to see how he operated in press boxes, how he was in the clubhouse, in the dugout, and back of the batting cage. So I knew he was special. And of course, the older I got, the more I realized, just how connected he was, talking to the great Bob Gibson or dealing with Red Shandings or Lou Brock or Kurt Flood. So, I mean, I got a feeling that he was of that importance. And then the older I got, clearly, I saw it even more. But when Vin Scully or Bob Prince or Jack Brickhouse would come, or Jack Buck or Harry Carey would come in the press box and say, "Good morning, Bob. How are you?" and introduce me to these famous people. Clearly, I got a feeling that he was more than just a dad. He was in a position of prominence, and then kind of a quote unquote celebrity because he was with the teams.
When we were setting that interview up to chat with him, it was a year ago, literally this episode, 26 episodes ago. Olivia was like, he wants to do it because we called in a favor with Liv.
Yeah. Right.
He's going to do it, but he wants John to come back and talk with us in the atrium because he's really proud of it.
Yes.
That was incredible. There was a moment, Kevin, when John does this all the time, right? 25, 30 years, whatever, in the sports business, yourself included. Me, not so much. And I'm sitting in the atrium with John Anderson and Bob Harlan, and I'm just going, how the hell did I get here? This is absolutely incredible. When you were the adult, though, as you were just mentioning, going through that whole tax thing, what were some of the things that maybe behind closed doors your dad was saying? Because, yes, it went through, and the Packers are who they are today because of it. I firmly believe that. But there had to have been some moments where it was like, holy man, this isn't going well.
Well, he would tell me the stories, and I'd come home from school or from wherever I was, visiting back in Green Bay, and it really wasn't him telling the stories as much as my mom, and how she was worried about his health and how he wasn't sleeping and how he'd have these sleepless nights and pace the floor and constantly on the phone dealing with politicians in Madison, trying to deal with aldermen and council people in Green Bay. It was complicated, and he got death threats. He got some very nasty notes. But he says at the end of the day, he always handled people. He said, you could call the Packers. Anybody could call the Packers and go right through to him. He didn't have a secretary that was serving as a shield or anything. You called the Packers and you'd say, "Bob Harlan, please," and he'd pick up his own phone. And he felt like, that's my position. I don't own the team. I'm working on behalf of the public and the board of directors and the executive committee to handle this position. So he felt like he was like a politician almost, in how he had to deal with the constituency all the time. And he would talk about the nasty calls, the hangups, and the obscenities that would be thrown his way. But he said the most gratifying not only was seeing what he had done, and with the help of many people on the staff and all the politicians that had a hand in it, and there were hundreds of people that were involved. He said that the people that would call and hang up, the people that wrote the notes that were nasty and and threatening, he said those people all wrote back or called back and said, "I was wrong, and you were right, and the vision you had was something that just the normal person couldn't have," and that was probably as gratifying for him as anything. But he felt it. He still has his health. He's still alive and kicking and doing well, as you saw just a year ago. But it clearly took a toll, but it came with the territory. And I don't think he knew it to that extent, but he knew it was going to be tough, and it was, and longer than he thought, and more. It only passed it like just a little over 50%. I mean, it was not a big wide margin. It just barely passed to get that money, but it came in under budget and on time. And again, another thing he was very proud of.
And now if you polled people, the vote was actually 80-20. The way it came through.
And all of them were at the Ice Bowl.
I was there for the Ice Bowl. Right. Exactly.
So you have a completely different career path than your dad. And yet all those things you described, I feel like somehow work in the job you do, and that, at least I see it. to some degree, like I am a conduit to the people. Like people turn on sports. I'm not sure they want to see me, but they do want to see LeBron James. And I need to make sure I connect those people with that person. Like some of those lessons from your dad, does that factor into how you approach the job you have?
It does. And just how he treated everybody, from the mentally challenged person that would deliver mail to his desk every morning at Lambeau, to the Jerry Joneses and the Rooney family and the Maris in New York and Pete Rozelle. I mean, he dealt with the whole spectrum of people, and he treated everybody the same. And I think that came from his PR background. When with the Cardinals, as I mentioned before, it was public relations and media relations. So he had to handle the community side. They didn't have the vast number in the front offices they have now. He dealt with the media and he dealt with charities and the public. So he had to do both, and he learned a lot of that. Now, he was a journalism major at Marquette, so he had an innate feel for journalism and the way to write an AP headline and the first sentence of a wire story. He worked for UPI, covered Lombardi when he was right out of college, then eventually got the Marquette SID job, as I'm sure he told you all these things. So, but he was based in journalism, and that was huge for me, that I could get, hints from him when I was starting out, when I was 11 and 12, about what was going on. And if I had questions, he could handle it. And that was very, very helpful at that time, clearly.
Do you attest that to your love of what you do and ultimately your career path, Kevin, was seeing how your dad handled the media and you ultimately going, this is what I want to do?
Well, everybody loved him, Trevor. I mean, people that dealt with him there knew he was fair, and he'd always give him time, and he would say hello and how's the family and all the things that were very much a part of that. And I've taken a lot of those things to heart, and knowing how, we kind of take it for granted sometimes, the positions we're in. I'm sure you and John are the same way. And knowing that the people that watch and listen to you both, and the same with me, you almost feel like you're in a position that so few are so lucky to have, that you feel, that's kind of part of the territory, part of the deal, that you've got to be nice. And I watched him deal this way with hundreds of people over the years, with a smile and a little sense of humor. And I think that has clearly rubbed off on me. He also gave me the chance to kind of go behind the curtain and see what a press box is like in Major League Baseball stadiums and in the NFL at Lambeau. And I'd spot for visiting radio networks or the television network if they were really desperate and somebody didn't show up, and I would fill in, and spot for the Jim Simpsons and Tim Ryan at CBS, Lindsey Nelson at CBS, and then all the number of great radio play-by-play voices there were back in the 70s. And that, having a chance to be in that world really, I think, fed my enthusiasm for it. I really wanted to be an airline pilot when I was a young kid, but my dad took a look at my math grades, and at that time there were no computers and phones and anything that you had to know math and slide rule and abacuses and all this weird stuff, but you had to know geometry and trigonometry and all these complex mathematical things. And he took a look at my math grades when I brought him home when I was in grade school. And then he'd look at me, and then he looked at my math grade, and then he'd look at me again, and then look once again. And he'd say, if it were me, I think I'd concentrate on journalism. And so that's what kind of really swayed me into joining. They said, but you have the best of both worlds. You can travel, which you like to do, and you can be involved in sports. And so having that, and he said, but my dad would attest, he would say, I'm not good at math either. So of all the things you inherited from me, that also comes with the package. And but that's okay. I've learned to survive, and certainly the advancement of technology has helped me a great deal. But that really got me started. And then along the way, when I'd be broadcasting in my room, turning down the sound when I was, at home when I was 11, 12, 13 years old, and doing games off of TV and pretending I was in that press box, calling that game, the Orange Bowl or an NFL game. And sometimes, unbeknownst to me, he would be outside my door listening, and I'd be finished, and he'd say, talk a little bit slower. And remember the who, what, where, when, and how, all the elements of reporting that are so important. So he was there every step of the way when I was learning to become a broadcaster and get involved in journalism.
First off, my folks were nicer than me. They always said, your grades are going to be fine, but I don't know that your eyesight could be a problem for being a pilot. And so I bought that till I'm like, wait, that guy's got glasses. They'll wear aviator. What do you mean my eyesight isn't good enough? So my parents were much kinder. They let me believe I was smart enough that but I couldn't see to land the plane when it came through, when it goes through. It's funny. I listen to the people that you let's face it, in my case, they sound like name drops, right? All these people you were exposed to, and I'm thinking, and I'm trying to watch John Campbell and Jim Klein and some of these other guys are the ones, Daryl Burnett, that shaped me when they went through.
Bob Schultz at Channel 11, Bob Schultz, who is that, right? I mean, all these.
The first job I got, I was in Tulsa, and we were at a 40th birthday party for a guy that I'm like, okay, yeah, we got to go. And I look and I'm like, why do I know that guy? And they go, oh, we're here for Al Jerkins' 40th birthday.
Al Jerkins, of course.
Big Al. Oh my God. So now I go find him and I introduce myself. And I said, I've literally been in Tulsa and a professional. At the time I was a photographer and an editor. And I said, I've been here like 3 months, but I watched you when I was a kid in Green Bay. And he looked down and I was wearing bowling shoes. And he's like, man, I could have pegged you from Green Bay. Because I wore bowling shoes to a bar because, not many people did back in the day when they did that. So are you a Milwaukee kid or a St. Louis kid or a Green Bay kid?
Green Bay, first and foremost. We moved up there when I was 10, was in St. Louis from the time I was born in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, right outside Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. My dad, when he was the SID at Marquette, and then we moved to St. Louis when I was about 4.5 or 5. Merle Harmon was the voice of the Brewers, the Braves at the time, the Milwaukee Braves. And my dad had come across him in a press pass. Said, I'd really love to get in baseball. He said, the Cardinal PR job is open. And so Merle Harmon is the one who put in a good word for my dad in St. Louis. So we moved there. And then when Dan Devine got the job with the Packers in 1971, leaving the University of Missouri as a very successful college football coach, I can distinctly remember sitting on the floor and the St. Louis TV stations interviewing Dan Devine and talking about how excited he was to go to such a legendary franchise like the Green Bay Packers. And I remember clearly my dad saying, boy, wouldn't that be a great job? Wouldn't it be great to join him in Green Bay? Mm. And sure enough, Dan Devine called the Cardinals. He said, I need someone young that I can have run my front office in Green Bay. They suggested my dad. My dad gets the job. We move up there the summer I'm 10. And that's where it's hard to remember anything before you were 10, but when I was 10, that's where we went. And I went up there and became a ball boy right off the bat with some of you'll remember Bart Starr Jr. and the late Steve Bratkowski and Bob Bratkowski, who was eventually an offensive coordinator in the NFL. His dad was Zeke. Yep. Tiger Devine, the son of Dan. So all these guys were they were older than me, but they were all ball boys with me through the early 70s. Then they all left for whatever reason, and new group came in, and I was Hog Hanner's son, his 2 sons. So, I got to be a ball boy and got to be on the field and charted the offense for Bart Starr, worked during training camp, and had all these great experiences and learned football is really what I did. I learned football. So football's really in my blood from that standpoint.
We're going to pick up where that left off. There's so much to cover. We can talk to him for 2 hours. We promise we won't. We're going to get you out of here, but we'll take our first break, bring it back with Kevin Harlan on the Inside Wisconsin Show.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Aaron's Company, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube. Leave a review. Smash the like button. Just get with us. All right, so we covered the ground that you're not a seafood guy. Got that. But Festival Foods certified Angus beef. So tell me, if you are going to Festival and you're grabbing a steak and it's like your go-to, this is the steak that you're grabbing, what are you having?
From there, probably a ribeye.
Yeah, that's exactly my go-to.
Yeah, that's where I would go there. I don't mind a nice big porterhouse. It's funny having spent so much time in the Missouri area, right, in Kansas, right, beef cattle everywhere, big Angus and stuff. You'd be surprised how many people don't know about dairy cows. Like I just go, is that a beef cattle or dairy? And the average person was like, cow's a cow. At least you get in that area that no beef. It's this kind of this Angus. But you're like, okay, but do you know the difference between a Holstein and a Jersey and a milking shorthorn or a Guernsey? Like those are the cows that give milk. I try to spread the gospel. I know I've never actually been a farmer, but I feel like you should know what a Holstein looks like, and you should know the difference between a Holstein and a Guernsey, and a Holstein and a Jersey. So
yeah, you talk a good game. I'm the ribeye guy too for New Year's this year. Went to festival and grabbed a whole tenderloin. Okay, trimmed it up, did the thing.
Right.
We seasoned it, put it in the fridge overnight for 24 hours. Okay, pulled it out. Then we put it in the oven and slow cook it to a temp that's just under medium. And then you get the Blackstone completely white hot and you sear the outside. It's called reverse searing. And that thing was absolutely dynamite. I like a good ribeye too.
So when you do this, right, and I've had this argument with my brothers, like, isn't that much easier to go to Festival Foods and get that than like, hey, I got to go sit in a tree stand and shoot a deer, or I got to go in a boat and wait around and hope a fish bites my line? No, just go to the store, go to Festival. That's why it's there. Okay, people. And I get your outdoorsy and your wood stuff. I love it. It's great. But I'm just talking for the economy of effort.
Yes, I understand.
Just gonna go buy a steak.
It's no doubt. It's no doubt cheaper. Do not tell any of our wives, or if a wife's a hunter, don't tell the husband. I mean, if you add it all up, absolutely go to Festival Foods and buy their steaks. Yeah.
You don't have to buy a license. You don't have to buy ammo. You don't have to buy tackle or minnows or scent of dough. Like, you don't have to buy any of that stuff. So you can just go get it. Anyway,
certified Angus beef
for another day, but that's the same lecture I give all the time.
Bestfoods.com, click on meat and seafood. There will be no deer tag necessary. We're in between segments with our guy, Kevin Harlan. Time for another Inside Wisconsin Top 5 list presented by the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, a top university here in Wisconsin. UW-Platteville ranks in the top 20 for regional universities in the Midwest because of its quality academic programs, expert faculty, and affordable tuition. Learn more at uwplatt.edu. I just saw this morning that UW-Platteville has announced that they have increased freshman incoming in the fall the last 2 years in a row. And I don't think many universities can say that. So good for them.
That is true. Did you know there are way more applications, but there are fewer students? You'll learn this as you get ready with your children as they get college age. But it's much easier to do like this common app. So if you got $50, you can send it anywhere. Where before you had to do it by hand. But because we're past baby boomers and all these other generations, there are fewer high school graduating seniors, but there are way more applications. So that you can increase your student body is really it's an admirable, that's amazing thing. Good for them.
All right, so jumping into this week's top 5 list in honor of our guy and his radio call ability, Kevin Harlan, break life for us. I wanted to think back about the top 5 radio calls here in Wisconsin over the years. Clearly after 1983, but I love the radio, right? Bringing it to life. I started radio in my career. Obviously, you're a TV guy. Here we commingle on the interwebs. But back to radio, I'm just a big fan. So my top 5 radio calls, I'm curious to know if you maybe were on SportsCenter, and you told me a while back that you always search for the radio calls, right? When a big sports moment happens, you want to make sure to get the radio call, yeah?
They tend to go and try to find those. And my new thing now is always, because it always says, here's how it sounded on KJOH or whatever it is, and here's the guy. And I'm always like, okay, well, the national audience, most of them don't know where that is. So now what we've kind of done, and here is the Colts, Colts Hail Mary. And we're like, Colts, I'm like, let's just see if we can tell whose call this is, right? Because and sometimes we show both, but you're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the Colts guy. We had that one a few weeks ago. I'm like, yeah, I'm almost positive that was pretty much the Colts guy when they come through. But yeah, that's for I think the reason you do that, Trev, right, is because people want to hear the local flair. They want to hear how it is interpreted by that team, or whether that's the good side or interpreted on the bad side. And it is kind of an emotional thing that's kind of neat to hear when it comes through. I rarely hear those though, because I'm around. I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, I'm glad you're there because you listen to these things. And most of the time I'm like, no, I'm at work. I'm kind of watching, and half the time the sound's not even up. And so, yeah, I'll be curious to hear what you have on your list. And then when you're done, I'll tell you about the broadcasting game we used to play and still do on occasion.
Nice. All right.
Kind of fun.
We'll get through this. So number 5,
Yep.
Ted Davis, Bucks play-by-play announcer for their championship.
Sure.
I often wonder if these things are pre-written, and I do believe that this one was pre-written. He said as he was announcing that the Bucks were world champions, Wisconsin, we have a room at the top of the world, and then your Milwaukee Bucks are world champions. That I just love how they kind of make it about Wisconsin and the fan base. Not that they wouldn't do that, but I think you get my point. Number 4, March 20th, 2016. I remember this. I heard this. Bronson Koenig versus Xavier. Killer buzzer beater in the corner. And the next thing you see on the TV piece is Bill Murray just completely stunned. Do you remember that? They beat Xavier to go to the Sweet 16.
Yeah. He's out here now, right? His kid, I think, works for UConn when
That's
they come through.
No repeats. So Ted Davis, 5. Our guy Bronson Koenig, obviously that's Matt LePay down there at the Badgers at number 4. Number 3, Yelly and Braun hit back-to-back home runs to win a game April 3rd, 2018. There's something, I mean, listen, all 5 of these could be Bob Uecker in a home run.
I was going to say, are we going to get up, get out of here, baby, or what? Is
Yeah.
that where we're at? Yeah, okay.
We are. And that one was super interesting because obviously it was to win the game, right? 2018. But they're in the playoff hunt there in April. No, they weren't in the playoff hunt in April, but they were coming off of seasons that were playoff ready. 2018 was a big year. You could tell Uke was into it. Yelly, home run to tie the game. Braun right after that home run to win the game. We'll see if we can't get away with playing a little bit of this audio when this all gets put together. We'll see how that shakes out. But Uke, number 3. Number 2, February 5th, 2012. We'll talk to Harlan about this as well. But Wayne Larrivee calls the Super Bowl championship for the Packers. And you could hear in his voice, rarely does a guy go up in terms of when he's speaking, right? And he goes, the Packers are world champions of football. And almost like he was, I don't know if it's choked up or if it's just a moment where he was so into it, but I'll never forget that. I always go to the radio set.
He's gotten to call 2 world champions, right? Because he got to call the 85 Bears. Yeah. So he's
shuffle away.
Practice, yeah.
Good run. All right. Last one, January 26th. Here's number 1, 1997. Jim Irwin, Max McGee, the radio call for the Packers Super Bowl 31. It was obviously the first time since Super Bowl II that the Vince Lombardi trophy was coming home. And that's exactly what he said. The Vince Lombardi trophy is coming home where it started. The Green Bay Packers are world champions. Again, I get goosebumps just thinking about that. But there's something about the radio that brings it alive. Yeah. And whether it was Jim Irwin and Max McGee or Wayne Larrivee and Larry McCarron, who, by the way, I sometimes feel bad for Wayne because it's hard to get a word in edgewise. When something good is going on, Wayne's doing the play-by-play, and Rock's like, yes, go, yes, every time.
That's not unusual if you listen to enough of them. You know, a lot of times
Uke is legendary. Matt LePay is legendary. Ted Davis is now retired in Texas, I believe. Back to Uke for just a second, as now we get into spring training here, not long away. There's something you probably don't do this, but I try to. The first radio Brewers spring training game, they usually put out a schedule for the spring training games. And when Uke signs on for the first time, it's sometime in February, typically in Wisconsin. The snow is falling. It's the coldest, gloomiest time of year. And then on pops Uke talking about spring training baseball, and all is right in the world. Just awesome. Like that. So, all right, what's this game? I'm intrigued here.
My buddies and I, who were all just, especially in college, right? We were all aspiring, and then we were all just sports crazy, and everybody had their favorites. So what we do is, if we were just sitting around bored and had no money, which is usually what we did, or had a bunch of cheap beer, is somebody would pick an announcer, and then another guy would just give the nonsensical setting. So you're like, you know what? What if Kevin Harlan was describing childbirth, right? And so there's the mother in her light blue dressing gown, double tied in the back, white piping, and we just did dumb stuff like that, right? Or like if you can have Wayne Larrivee calling someone checking out at a grocery store. Oh, look at that. Nice choice there. Strawberries. Oh, we are having a sale on whole fryers and a dagger as she goes over $100 in like we just did stupid stuff. Like, so you have Keith Jackson, talking about how to unclog your drain. And it was just the dumbest stuff. Awesome. And we had guys that could do different guys really well. And, he's a St. Louis guy that is a legend in and around Missouri and did golf forever, Kevin, I know will be all over him. I don't know you, but if you don't remember Jay Randolph, the original Round Mound of Sound, he was tremendous. So we would do Jay Randolph ordering coffee at the cafeteria. It's just stupid. But I encourage people to try that sometimes. Think of your favorite announcer and then just put him in just a stupid, nonsensical setting and see what he comes. It's just a thought.
Did you say that there was one that took the cake above all else?
It is, and I can't say it here, but I'd be happy to talk as many things. I'll be happy to take the answer off air.
Okay, got it. I won't go there. Thanks for the heads up on that. All right,
here you go.
Our top 5 moments of amazing radio-ness, the best calls post 1983 that I can remember. Bucks, Badgers, Brewers, Packers, Super Bowl championships, and away we go back to one of the best, Kevin Harlan. We are back, the Inside Wisconsin Show. Trevor Thomas, John Anderson, and Kevin Harlan, the voice of literally everything. And maybe that's kind of where we picked this up, where we left off. Kev, how do you decide what you're going to announce? How did you determine NFL and NBA and everything else that you got your mitts in? Ultimately, what was the goal, I guess, in the beginning?
Radio to be my dream was, as we all did growing up, listening to distant voices on radio, calling games, whether it was, Jack Buck or Lindsey Nelson calling. Lindsey Nelson called Monday Night Football for a while, as did Don Criqui. Those were voices that I grew up with in my head, along with Summerall and Ray Scott, certainly. But I loved Jim Simpson a lot. He did the first couple Super Bowls on NBC radio. But I would listen to these people. I figured that's what I'd like to do. And then I kind of drifted a little bit to the Kaywood Ledfords, who called Kentucky, John Ward, who called Tennessee. I could pick up their broadcast in Green Bay. Listen to the folks who broadcast Michigan. University of Wisconsin was Jim Irwin. So these were the voices. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be the voice of a major university. So I went to Kansas thinking that that's what I would do. TV, I never thought TV, ever considered. I was always radio. So I based a lot of what I did on voice and projection and delivery and pacing and cadence and enunciation and inflection. Those are the things I worked on, and would drive in my car by myself and try to imitate Keith Jackson or Criqui or all the, Summerall, and all these guys sound nothing like them. But in my head, that's what was serving as my roadmap. And I really didn't know where the business was going to go. And I guess that's the beauty of being young and stupid. You just say, I'm just going to give it my all and see where things kind of end up. So by the grace of God, and truly by the grace of God, I have been lucky enough to advance where I am. But a lot of it is just saying, I'm going to try to continue to make sure that I'm always enjoying the process. My dad always said, there's nothing like waking up in the morning and looking forward to work. There's so many people that don't enjoy the profession, the job that they have. But I can tell you, as someone who loves his job, that waking up every morning, the moment my feet hit the ground, I cannot wait to get. Of course, he was going to Lambeau Field, 1265 Lombardi Drive. Right. It's a pretty good address and a pretty good job. But I always took that to heart. So I always kind of followed not what I maybe was best at, but what I wanted to do, what my heart guided me toward. And that is what it guided me toward. So but radio was my first love and the thing that I was aiming at. And TV just kind of happened along the way. So that's why I enjoy Monday Night Football on radio so much. It gets me back to what I got in the business for initially, was to be doing big games, NFL games, preferably on radio. And I've enjoyed. There's not a job that I've had that I've not enjoyed to some degree.
So Trevor, this is where I will make my Missouri poke, because he goes to KU, and then he did get a job at a major university because he went to Missouri, and got the job with the Tigers. How on earth? I've tried to educate Trevor on some of this rivalry, and he claims he gets it, but he has no idea. None. How on earth do you get that job? Because the gatekeeper, literally, for football coaches, they come and go at that place. But if you don't know, Norm Stewart was the legendary coach, Shelbyville, Missouri, had been there forever and was there long after you were gone. And but how on earth does he let a fox into the hen house?
A great way to describe it. My first job out of school was doing the NBA for the Kansas City Kings, and then they went to Sacramento. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough that the guy that was doing the Chiefs, the voice of the Packers, Wayne Larrivee, left the Chiefs to go do the Chicago Bears. on WGN. So I got my NFL roots started there after doing a lot of the pregame stuff the previous 3-4 years when I was in school and while I was still doing the NBA. So I was doing the NFL and met my wife in Kansas City. We started our family. We knew we were going to stay here. We were not moving. And I said, I could do the Chiefs for 40 years on radio. I'd like to pick up some college games too. The Missouri broadcast came to the station I was working for, the Chiefs flagship, Kansas City, KCMO Radio 810, which is now WHB. But 810 was a very famous signal and famous number in the radio business. And they came to our station. And our general manager said, well, I'd like somebody on our staff to do the games, and we've got somebody in mind. And they threw that out. Now, at the University of Missouri was Jack Lingle, who, by the way, took over as the head coach at Marshall once that plane went down. Remember that back in the early 70s and resurrected the program. He was the football coach. Yeah. And then Joe Castiglione was his assistant. Joe is now with the University of Oklahoma, was at the University of Missouri. He's been on the selection committee for the NCAA tournament, served as their chair. And then the football coach, Woody Woodenhofer, who was a former linebacker coach with the Pittsburgh Steelers during their great years. And then Norm Stewart, the legendary college basketball coach. And so I drive down in the middle of July, drove down to Columbia for a lunch in an empty Boone Tavern restaurant, which is kind of a famous restaurant in Columbia. And there they are sitting as I walk in. And Norm really didn't say much in that lunch. But I think I had sold the other three and knew I probably still had some work to do with Norm. Began the football season. Basketball was approaching, went down for practice, had a chance to meet Norm during that practice. We went out that night for dinner with his wife, Virginia, and the rest is kind of history. Did him for 3 years. They had incredible, unparalleled basketball success at the time, top 5 every year I was there in the country, and got to know Norm and his family and became embedded in the program. I said, listen, it may say Kansas on my diploma, but I want to be a pro, and I will sell your program harder than anybody else. Now, listen, they had Buck and Costas and John Rooney come through there doing their games. So there were some big shoes to fill. Harry Carey had at one time done Missouri football and basketball, but I was the next in line and cherished that opportunity. It was on KMOX in St. Louis, so it had a big reach, big time network, and loved it. And Norm and I are friends to this day with his family.
You talked about the radio and you're doing there, and believe me, I said this, Trevor, like you helped so many of my friends that went through with your kindness and your just lending an ear and encouragement to people like Dave Hunziker, who people don't know, but is the play-by-play voice of Oklahoma State and has been for more than 20 years now, or Chris Trevino, who's another dear friend of mine, and stayed around all these people that were affected by you being there, myself included. Kind of on the coattails of those guys, because I went a little different route than they did. But in talking about the radio gig and Monday and what it means to you, I'm not sure regret's the right word, but do you ever miss? You talk about Kaywood Ledford, and when you mentioned him, I'm thinking of like Woody Durham at UNC.
Yes, Woody Durham, another one, right?
That you had it with Kansas City. That when you go national, you kind of leave behind that local, like you're just that part of that audience, right? Where you become so ingratiated with those people that you can't think Kentucky basketball without Kaywood Ledford, and you couldn't think about Dean Smith. Like, did you ever miss having that kind of connection with a team and with an audience?
I do. And it's so perceptive of you, John. You guys know the business so well, but yes, you feel it's not an empty feeling when you do a network game, but you have no, horse in the race, right? I mean, like, I don't care. Only thing I care about on Sundays is that everybody at CBS does their best and we put on the best broadcast. But I don't care who wins at all. I want a good game. I do root for a good game. And on radio, the same. When I did the Chiefs for 9 years, I cared so much about that. I got Joe Montana's first year and Marcus Allen's first year with the Chiefs. I work with Len Dawson, the Hall of Fame quarterback. These become like members of your family. Every time we have 4 kids, every time we had a new baby, Linda Dawson, Len's wife, would send over a silver cup with the baby's birth date and name engraved. The day I left the Chiefs, Marty Schottenheimer called our house that morning, and we were both crying on the phone because he and I had grown incredibly close. And the same true at Missouri. When I left Missouri to go do the Minnesota Timberwolves, at the urging of Bob Costas and Marv Albert after calls to them asking what I should do. And both adamantly, they demanded that I take that job because it involved TV. They said, you need to do TV at your age or late 20s. And so that's why I took that job and left Mizzou. But I hated to leave that. I had tears saying goodbye to Norm. And I had become, John, as you described, part of that Mizzou family. And we would get Christmas cards from fans, and I'd be invited over to homes and would be invited to parties and all these different things with people I didn't know, but listened to our broadcasts. And that was really before the advent of all the TV we get right now. But radio, even back into the 80s and 90s, was still very, very popular and powerful. And that network was gigantic and still is to a degree, but back then it was huge. So, that was a very special time. And I do miss that. There is a part of me that, now I just care about my next game and getting ready for that and doing the best job of that I can.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have a horse in the race, but there are times, though, when you're calling a Packers game, right? Preseason Packers football, where you run into them on Monday night. Did you also do the 2012 Super Bowl where the Packers won? Were you there for that?
I did when they beat Pittsburgh and Dallas. As the first one I had done for Westwood One, which was part of CBS Radio. That was the first one I had done, yes.
So what's it like then when you're calling a game with the Packers in it? Because I assume that's a horse you kind of want to ride, yeah?
Well, but again, it's a national and international audience. The game is carried on the BBC, and it's carried in various networks all over the world. But clearly, with over 600 stations in the States, I don't want them to know that I'm a Packer fan or grew up in Green Bay or anything like that. It's a nice little, part of me and my heart. But at the same time, when Roethlisberger was completing passes, I got excited to passes to Hines Ward. And so I tried to be I'm very selfish at that stage, Trevor, and that is I'm just trying to have the best call that I can. I grade myself after every broadcast with a chart that I've developed over the years. I do a different one for radio that I do for TV. The TV one is based on the late, great Dr. Z in Sports Illustrated, who would come out and grade the broadcasters after every season. And he had a chart that he kept about, because he would watch so many games, but would listen to the call and had things that he wanted every call from the television broadcaster. And I've used that as my chart literally to this day, to grade myself. And then I expanded that for radio, because in radio, you need to do so many more things. That was Dr. Z, by the way, chiming in right there.
Good.
Who's above and watching us. But he really is the first one that kind of got me on this path. And Rick Goslin, who's with the Dallas Morning News and a very famous NFL writer, I looked at his charts for how he would chart plays that he was charting when covering an NFL game, and I got these grading charts that I use off of that. So I'm trying to figure out what was the question. But when I'm doing radio, no, I've got certain things that I've got to hit in every play that I call. So I was more concerned about that than the Packers winning. Now listen, when my dad's on the podium and they're getting that trophy in North Texas, by winning the Super Bowl, it was a pretty powerful moment. And there are moments that I stand back and think, when I was a kid, I dreamt of calling big games like this. And how about this, calling the Packers winning a Super Bowl with this young Cal quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, at the helm, and big play after big play to win it over, another legendary franchise, and that of the Steelers.
Yeah, 50-50 is important. I get that. I just didn't know if there was a little bit of a tip.
Yeah. I mean, first score I look at every Sunday when I get on the plane after doing my CBS game is the Packer score. And I do the Packer preseason still. John, you got to join that broadcast, by the way. You got to get on with us. You've got to get – it's a blast. It's only 3
here.
Games.
I just
fun.
need somebody to just let's call Mark Murphy tomorrow, and we'll see what he's got. Although, listen, I went to a preseason game in New England because you guys were close by, and I'm like, who is that blonde girl on the sideline? I usually know who all those people are. How do I not know? Like, I knew Steve Berline. Like, I know everybody and usually the Channel 2 guy did it forever, WBAY, when they had it. And then that's the first I knew that was your daughter. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, that's great. And then she shows up on some interviewing seminar that we have. And so now she's got to put up with me. Right. Because I'm like, hey, because everybody goes, well, I know your dad. Right. But they don't have the same connection. Like, I know your dad because I grew up down the street from where your dad was. And he was at Missouri, so she's just like, and this is a 3-day seminar. Right. And she's like, I don't know that I can take 3 days of this. Luckily, her first game of the year was Oklahoma State, and I said, "Here's Dave Hunsaker's number. You need to call him and say hi. He'll give you the inside dope, and he would love a chance, I'm sure, to pay back your dad in some small way by helping you when we come through here." Listen, we're all kind of intrigued by your broadcasting career because that's what's made you famous. But on this show, we're more intrigued by your Wisconsin connection. I need to know how it is you choose to. I get KC, but how is Door County like one of your base of operations as well?
Well, we live up there about half the year, actually, and we'd be up there right now. My wife, at Thanksgiving, where we spend every Thanksgiving, slipped on some ice and broke her leg in 3 places and dislocated her ankle. So we're back in Kansas City right now, but normally we'd be up there. When I was dating my wife, my mom said, "Hey, you guys should drive up to Door County and spend a day and just show her what that's like." And I really hadn't been up there that much because I was working in summers. I was going to school and playing sports during the year. So we really never vacationed that much and certainly didn't go up to Door County, but knew a little bit about it. Went up there. She loved it. She's from Oklahoma. Thought, with your job and what your life is going to be like, our life is going to be like, we were engaged at the time. She said, we should look at this. And so we did, and we're up there. So we basically took the kids when they finished school, from the time they were just little girls, and we have a son as well, our baby, took them up there, spent the entire summer, and they worked in ice cream stores and sold candy and took sailing lessons and fished and met this whole group of friends different from what they had at home. And that really proved to be a very nice little part of their growing up. And we consider Door County basically home. We were married and raised our children here in Kansas City, but Door County is our home. And that, of course, I'm from Wisconsin. So that's even more so for me.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate actually somebody from Wisconsin calling Door County home versus everybody from Illinois.
Right. Let's be honest. There are a lot of people, but a lot of our friends and they adore, and by the way, a lot of them have left Chicago and have Wisconsin residences by virtue of being up in Door County and in the state of Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. I'm cool with that. I still think we should put a toll on I-43, but that's just me. Could you make it up, Kev, that Olivia was going to follow in your footsteps? Pretty incredible.
So we have these, we're blessed with these 4 great kids, 3 daughters and a son. And I told him, I said, all you've seen in this business is the best of the business. We haven't had to move. I've never lost a job. Mm-hmm. I've been lucky enough to be at the top portion of what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I say it's not like that. For every one of me, there are hundreds of others that are struggling to find traction in the business. It's a tough business. It's very subjective. And all the things that you think would click and check the box don't. Sometimes there's no reason why something happens, why you do or don't get a job. But that's the kind of the subjectiveness of the business. I say, and most people struggle with it. And I said, I think there are many other things you can do with your lives. And 3 of the kids took my advice. The other one, our youngest girl, gave me the dad Heisman and said, I'm gonna follow this path. So when she was like in grade school and high school, she'd come up to the press box at Arrowhead when I was doing games. She would watch me do interviews. She sat in our booth for games when I was broadcasting and really wanted to get into it. And after a look at some of the prominent journalism schools in the country, including Missouri, she chose University of Georgia, which is an excellent program. They put her on the air, they on their internet broadcasts right from the time she was a freshman. I told my wife, I said, we'll find out how serious she is about the business, because you cannot make it in the business unless you are given virtually every minute of every day to getting better. But you can really advance through college by doing a lot of the work there and expanding how you sound and learning at a young age and getting some momentum. And sure enough, she did. And her first job while she was in college was doing sideline for Fox Sports South, doing the SEC, their SEC game of the week. She called me and I thought she was going for an interview in August when she first got to campus as a senior. Says, "Hey, Dad, I'm going in for this interview. They're looking for, they called me and said, can you come in and interview?" And I said, well, that'd be great. You're going to maybe chart plays in the control room, or you're going to edit some tape, you're going to, handle the sideline person, or whatever you're going to do. And so I didn't hear from her for a couple hours, and I called her and I go, "Hi, sweetie, where are you?" "I'm driving back." "How did it go?" "Oh, it was great." So I'm going to be on the sideline. I said, oh, that's great. You can help whoever their sideline reporter is. You can help them get the cable organized, give them the mic, hold the microphone as they go get it. No. I'm going to be the announcer on the sideline. I said, what? And so she became this. And then she went to ESPN. She went to the Atlanta Hawks, went to ESPN for 5 years, John, and was your colleague. And now she, fast forward, she's married to a fairly well-known Wisconsin athlete. They have a little baby boy, 1.5 years old, who's huge, by the way. He's gigantic like his dad. And he's only 1.5 years. Oh my, he's so long. And she's now working for Sky Sports, hosting NFL stuff over there. And so she's had to kind of redefine herself, but she's in it, and and we talk all the time business. And I would listen. I'd watch your games. I get to my NFL site on a Saturday, watch your game on ESPN that Saturday afternoon or Saturday night. I text her some ideas but I'm all about performance. I always told her, I said, a great story, poorly told and delivered, is one that will just fizzle and die. Mm-hmm. But an ordinary story, well told with a great delivery, will have so much impact. And that's what you're aiming for. It's all about delivery and reporting and making sure that you have those two things firmly placed. People can judge the story for whatever they want to. But if you deliver it, that's it. Delivery is so much a part of this business. So she has kind of followed those rules, and she's done very well. I'm very proud of her. It's a tough, John, Trevor, it's a tough business, man. It's not kind in a lot of ways.
So I don't mean to frighten you like this, but so my son, after his freshman year, suddenly is a journalism major. Didn't see it coming.
Where does he go, John? Where does he go to school?
He's at the University of Arkansas, and he's doing UATV.
Really? Oh my gosh!
And so I tell him the same thing. Like, your dad worked at the same place for 25 years. It doesn't happen. By the way, I married a woman from Oklahoma, so I'm going down to see if she's broken her leg in 3 places, because right now I feel like we're living parallel lives.
They can't walk on ice. These Oklahoma girls, ice. What's it? Whoop!
Yeah, I don't know what's happened. But in telling the story, right, which is everything, and I drill on him because he's more on sort of the newsroom side right now and not a play-by-play side. So I get with him about, you got to write it well, but in your job, you talk about delivery, and I think part of what makes you special, and the great one special, is recognizing the moment. But that takes experience, right? Like, that you have to know that, like, that sometimes a 3-pointer in the first quarter is just a 3-pointer in the first quarter. If you make the sell, right? Like, how did you go about doing that? How did you start to experience that and develop that so that you recognize this is the moment? This is the one that people are going to remember. Not necessarily the call, just that, but this is the moment where I need to make sure that I am on it.
Well, you almost go in reverse. You almost say, if a picture can, say 1,000, you don't have to say anything. You can just kind of frame it and let it speak for itself. After hopefully you kind of set the characters and set the stage, and the moment should kind of speak for itself. But probably, when I began at TNT in 1996, doing the playoffs for them in the NBA, I remember doing Jordan games and doing big games for them, and thinking, I've got to be down the middle, as we talked about moments ago with Trevor, and how that was all, part of the deal. But it's a different kind of delivery than doing the Chiefs on radio, or doing Missouri Tiger football or basketball on radio, or doing the Timberwolves, a local team in the NBA on radio. So it's probably being relaxed, I would say, is the number one thing. I feel like I mean, we all get nervous before we go on the air. Nervous is get kind of the butterflies. Just your awareness, your sense of being present is heightened. You're engaged, and those are all the important things to have. But sometimes the best things are when you just kind of stick to your knitting, making sure that you're still hitting the components of a play that need to be hit, and then when that big moment comes up, that you can lay out, let the moment speak for itself, and then just kind of fizzle in the background a little bit. Some of the greats, Scully's and all these people, they've called, historic plays. And if you listen to them, a lot of times, Scully one time said, why not use the orchestra that's right in back of you, which is the crowd, which is the stadium, the arena. Use the orchestra. And so I think about that a lot. When I did a shot with Kawhi Leonard hitting game-winning 3 in a Game 7 up in Toronto a couple years ago
Yep.
when he played for the Raptors and they beat Philly. And the crowd and their emotions and the pictures that we were showing on TV spoke for itself. But had I not been relaxed and comfortable in the moment with all the years I've been lucky enough to be in the business, I don't know that I would have had that kind of presence to feel like, hey, by saying nothing, you're saying everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then radio is different though. Radio is a little bit different. Like the other night, we had a catch up in Seattle in a Monday night game as the Seahawks beat the Eagles, and Smith and Jigba caught this over the shoulder in the end zone pass to take a lead with under a minute to go, and by a backup quarterback, Drew Lock, who played at Missouri. Ironically, not talking about the Tigers, beautiful throw. He'll never have a better throw in his life, I guarantee you. And had this, and that was a moment. The crowd was so loud in Seattle. Where it was one of the few times on radio that I felt, I can lay out here a little bit and let the crowd kind of fill in. And I've said what happened. Let the crowd kind of take it over. So I think it's just being comfortable and experienced in a lot of those things. But as a younger broadcaster, I don't know that I would have had that kind of presence to take that approach. I guess I don't know. I'm learning. Listen. If you're not evolving in this business, if you're not trying to get better. As Madden said, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. It's so true in broadcasting. If you're not keeping up and staying present with what's going on and back of you, in front of you, to the side of you, in terms of the business, without trying to get worried by it, and that's kind of that's a thin line. That's a tough tightrope to walk, because there's got to be just enough paranoia, I think, in you to feel the heat, but not be affected by it, and not let it divert you from your roadmap. Does that make sense? I think I'd have you can't think you've got all the answers. I certainly don't. And I'm humbled every time I put on my tape or listen to my games. I go, holy man, up there, dude. Like you let's get on it here. Let's get on it. So.
It's funny. All right. We'll take a quick break and wrap it up with Kevin Harlan in just a sec. The lightning round is next. The Inside Wisconsin Show.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Aaron's Company, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Hey, remember to subscribe on YouTube. Leave a review. Smash the like button. Just get with us. Jay, I don't know how many years ago it was, but when Miller Lite went back to that white can.
Yes.
Man, and that was supposed to be like a part-time deal. Like, cheers to the yesteryears or whatever it was. And then it flew off the shelves. And now, oh, damn it, I'm not a weather guy. Boop, like, white can to stick.
I remember asking you that because I think you were working for a distributor or something at that point.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, that white can came out. I mean, it just screams, great taste, less filling, all the old ads. I'm like, is that thing selling? And you're like, you have no idea. Like, this thing that was supposed to be a novelty run has now become the thing, right? And it's just amazing. Like, and I love how people are like, that's retro. I'm like, really? No, to me, that's sort of, that's actually really what I thought. But the problem, here's the only drawback with that. Okay. And listen, you got to work really hard to find drawbacks. But as you know, I like to take use of nature's refrigerator. And when you throw it in the snowbank, it's great. But now when the white cans recently, like suddenly like crap, it's in the snowbank. And then if it snows a little on top, like this is bad. So now I feel like it's almost like when you are when you have to mark the power lines because somebody wants to come dig a hole in your yard. So now I get a little red flag. So I'm like, okay, I just got to mark where the Miller Lite is just in case the white can becomes camouflaged and a problem, right? Like a polar bear's nose. Okay, maybe I can see the little blue, shield on there, but there's also a chance you're running, and I don't know how much you have to have and where you're putting it that you might lose it, but I'm just saying you should take precautions. Just chuck it in a snowbank. Wait a minute, it's gone. And
there's no way we drank all that beer last night. Oh,
correct.
There it is.
And then April comes and you're like, cool, we got 7 beers out of here. I had no idea. Be awesome. Like, it's a great spring surprise, but in a time
I went to the Packers tent sale where they sell just random crap from Lambeau and team issued gear. And I went in going, all right, this is big boy clothes, right? I bought some stuff that's my size because obviously those guys are my size. and I walked out with the tap system.
With this, the whole system or just the tap?
I bought the whole system. It came along with the tap. Like it, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I might use it someday, but it's got 4 taps on it, right? So, yeah, it's literally a.
Okay, so then I'll ask you this because I feel like this is a total Wisconsin question. How many people do you know that have the fridge with the tap on the front, the kegs in the fridge? And how many people do you know? I think I could probably name 3 off the top of my head.
So I'm going to have one. I know that for a fact. You're talking about the kegerators, right?
Yeah.
And I grew up with one in my basement. That was the first rendition of that. It was a fridge, a full fridge, right. White cover.
Correct.
It had the tap on the. Oh, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, the old school one. Yeah, actually, but the tap was in the front. You drilled the hole and put the tap in the front.
Yes, through the front of the fridge. I don't know any. I would love to get one. If you have one, email us, would you please? I will come and pick it up.
The man will buy anything.
And I'm going to put this in the front.
Yeah. Like I said, I think I could name 3 people that have one. I don't know if Rathersburger has one, but I can name, I can name 3 people whose houses I've been in for sure.
Byron has
parties in high school and stuff that were down in the basement. No, I don't know if Byron had one, but Byron had a player piano, but that's a whole different story.
John, Wisconsin for a different day. Miller Lite, great taste, 96 calories. Go to MillerLite.com/inside Wisconsin to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories and 3.2 carbs. 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. Yeah. Miller Lite on tap. There's something special about it. Now I'm thirsty.
You have 4 of them.
We are back to wrap it up with Kevin Harlan on the Inside Wisconsin show. All right, 2 from me, and then the JA lightning round. Kev, we would be completely remiss if we didn't at least ask you real quick about how this whole you do play-by-play of people running on the field thing happened.
Well, I don't even know actually either. I was with Kurt Warner back in 2016, Monday night game, early season, horrible game. And he was bored, and I could tell he was bored. We had just kind of started working with each other. And this guy runs out on the field. And the thing is that no one stopped him. Like, he ran right through the slot receiver's position as Case Keenum is in the shotgun. And they're about ready to snap the ball. And he runs, without any hesitation, right through the slot receiver, right through the San Francisco defense, downfield about 20 yards, curls around, comes back there, and no one's chasing him. And so it kind of provoked the call. And the fact that, when you're doing radio, you're so in the weeds on, all right, they got 2 receivers to the left and 1 to the right. They got a split backfield, first down and 10. They're at their own 20, like all this stuff. And then here comes this guy. And so, like, right in the pattern of calling the play, and here comes somebody running through now the field and now through the defense, and he's got no shirt on, like whatever I said. And I was scared to death. Now, I had done this at ESPN when I worked at ESPN with a rabbit on the field in a Michigan-Purdue game, and Elvis Gerbach was the Michigan quarterback. I was working with Craig James back in like 1991 when I first started at ESPN, and we did the play-by-play of the rabbit, and I was worried then. You'd think I would have learned my lesson and did it again when this kid ran out in Santa Clara. So, but that was just, again, just kind of happened. I would not recommend that to anybody in the business to do that. That is not the way to advance. It was something that I took a chance on, and it could have gone the other way, believe me, in a hurry. The league was okay with it. It worked out, and now it's my rearview mirror, and I'm probably finished calling people that run on the field. But that one kind of caught people's attention.
Pretty awesome. All right, one more. So I mentioned to you off the air that I grew up in radio, right? And I actually fell in love with radio because of guys like you and Bob Uecker and Wayne Larrivee and Matt LePay. And maybe I'm partial because all of those names are connected to Wisconsin, no different than John Anderson. But do we not have it good here, Kevin, with the guys and gals that are on the air for our sports teams in Wisconsin? It's pretty incredible.
Well, Matt has just carved this great career as the voice of the Badgers. And now he's doing some Brewers stuff during the summer on television. He's phenomenal. I've always admired him, and he's a wonderful guy. And I told you before about Wayne. He was kind of the first guy that I really knew and worked with, and thus began to idolize him. I got a job with him as an intern under him when I was 18. I was a freshman at Kansas. So Wayne, to me, has always been a very special person. I just think his radio football call to this day is as good as there is in the league. Brian Anderson, of course, he's a Texan, but he's adopted Wisconsin as his home state, and he's phenomenal and a very good friend. You're right. I mean, these voices that have been in our state were, before you mentioned Euchre, Jim Irwin, Eddie Doucette, who did the Bucks. There was Ted Davis, who did the Bucks for 24 years on radio. There have been some terrific broadcasters, and all voices that I listen to this day, but certainly grew up with in some of those names back in the 60s and 70s.
See, I think Eddie Doucette somehow, because of Uke and the great Packer voices, he gets overlooked, and he was unbelievable. And he was great in Portland and all those other places. When I was a kid, always, we don't have the sky hook without Eddie Doucette. We don't have the sky hook.
He invented all that stuff, and he was so colorful, had great rhythm to his broadcast. I can't say that I really the people that I listened to, Jim Durham in Chicago doing the Bulls on radio, and Joe Tate in Cleveland on 3WE. Those are the guys I really listened to. Doucette was just fun, and I'd have fun with him. But the guys that I tried to pattern because Doucette, because Tate and Jim Durham were very descriptive, and that style just really resonated with me. And the kind of dribble the guy was, where he was on the floor, a lot of geography, and I like that if he was defended by someone, what kind of a shot, where it was taken from. All those two broadcasters in particular really were very profound in the way I try to pattern myself.
All right. Well, I was going to run through these really quick, but I'm going to convert before we start, because you talked about so many of the great St. Louis guys that you had the pleasure of, whether it was Jack Buck and Harry. There's a name that has been left off, which I'm sure is just an oversight on both sides of ours, but it's come to my mind. What can you tell me about the great Jay Randolph, who I just think was himself in a voice that was just, that guy he was unbelievable. And I think he's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle of so many good guys that came through St. Louis.
Yeah. And he went to NBC, and of course he had Gowdy there, and he had Jim Simpson there. Cricky was there. And then Charlie Jones. So he had these 4 Hall of Fame guys. And then he was kind of the 4th or 5th NFL broadcaster, was prominent on golf on NBC, a St. Louis TV sports anchor. And a wonderful guy. Was his dad not in politics? I think his dad was in politics.
I don't know that much. I just know he was the original round mound of sound, and he was terrific. Before Barkley was ever that. Jay Randolph was that.
Wonderful guy. Len Dawson used to work at NBC and then took the Chiefs radio job, and that was my partner for 9 years. And all those NBC guys, Jones and Simpson and Randolph and Gowdy, they would always come into our radio booth to say hi to Len. And so I got to meet him there in kind of a second wave when I was in my early 20s. And they were always very kind. Jay Randolph in particular, kind. All the biggest guys, aren't they, John, Trevor? I always find that the biggest names are sometimes the nicest people in this business. And I've always admired that about these big names in our business.
It's because people haven't met me yet. I'm mean as a snake, but that's what we know. All right, we're going to zip through these really quick. I flew back for a Missouri game the other day. What the hell has happened to the Kansas City airport? I didn't recognize the place.
It was probably the worst airport in North America. Before that, it was Indianapolis, and Indianapolis built this beautiful new airport. The Kansas City people had heard enough, and they got the word out there, and they built this airport. And I think it's as nice an airport as you can attest, John, in the United States for the size. It's almost too nice for what we had. That was patterned after the Dallas airport with the half moon terminals. This one is an upside down H and is beautiful. It's much like Indy. It's a joy to go through there.
Yeah, I got off and I texted my friends. I'm like, I think I got on the wrong plane. I don't know where I am. Give me the most athletic of you or your siblings.
My brother was on a state championship. My younger brother's on a state championship football team at Premontre, now Notre Dame Academy. He was a starting linebacker. They won a state championship in football. So I'd probably have to say my younger brother is now an agent. He's the Harbaugh's agent, and he's the agent for Urban Meyer. Has about 60 NFL and college coaches and coordinators, and so he probably was our big athlete in our family.
All right, we talked about Notre Dame Premontre. What was it before it was Notre Dame and before it was Premontre?
It was called Central Catholic.
Correct, Central Catholic. Wow. Favorite Packer as a kid?
I've got a couple here. Larry Hefner, who is a backup linebacker. John Brockington, who is a running back. Kenny Payne, wore number 85, was a rascal. We love him. Dickey. Jack Kincannon, MacArthur Lane. Like, all these guys were so nice, so kind to us. I don't know that I could pick one, but Jim Carter, the middle linebacker, he was great. Some of the Willie Buchanan, Jim Hill, who we both know is in the business.
Yeah, in LA.
I see Jim Hill 5 times a year because we go to LA for the TNT NBA games, and he's always covering the Lakers. He could not be a nicer man. And I was a ball boy when he was a Packer starting safety. So I could go on and on. They were all nice. They were all nice.
It was him, Kenny Ellis, Al Matthews, and why can't I think of the other? Willie Buchanan. Yeah. We had A.J. Dillon on, and I had to inform him he was only the second best number 28 ever on the Packers when he came through. And Brockington and MacArthur Lane, what a backfield! 72 division champs, Trevor. 72. This is strictly vanity because I want to hear it because this is what my buddies and I used to love to listen to you do. Just tell me what the Chiefs are wearing at home on the radio.
They've got their bright red jerseys and their white pants and their helmets glistening under the lights of Arrowhead Stadium on this rainy November night with the wind blowing in the face. Here now comes Bill Kenny under center with the 1st down and 10.
There you go. And don't forget, we've got gold outlines on the white numerals.
We do. The gold trim, yes.
Who is Roy Smits?
Roy Smits was the basketball coach when I started broadcasting the Promontory Cadets when I was a sophomore. And he was a kind, wonderful man to me. Had great players. Do you remember Greg Knaffel, by the way?
Yeah.
Greg Knaffel was recruited by Notre Dame to play football, and by Bobby Knight at Indiana, and by Joe B. Hall at Kentucky to play basketball. Greatest high school athlete I ever saw. Got to call his games. He probably is laughing that we even come up with his name, but being Green Bay guys, that's what it is. And but Roy, and he played for Roy Smits. And they were Fox Valley Christian Conference champions, and he was the guy that led them. He was a great high school coach.
So that was an acceptable answer, or my friend Mike Smits' dad. Either one of those would have been acceptable. Who's the only KU basketball coach with a losing record?
Well, was it Naismith or was it James Naismith?
Dr. James Naismith, the guy who invented the game, is the only guy.
Invented the game of basketball. That's right.
But apparently couldn't coach it a lick. What does calling?
Smith was on those Kansas teams, by the way, that Fog Allen coached.
Yes.
You're the great North Carolina coach. Yeah.
What is calling a 14th straight Super Bowl going to mean to you in February?
What the other previous 13 meant is that I'm in a seat that was held by the legends of this business: Jack Buck, Marv Albert, Don Crickey, Lindsey Nelson, Jim Simpson, and those are voices that I hear in my head, and I think about them putting on that headset to call Super Bowls to a huge audience, and the responsibility that is there. It's a pretty emotional moment, actually, when I get in that seat and that game is there and they're playing the national anthem, and I think of each of them that broadcast this game. And there are only 2 people broadcasting the NFL Super Bowl every year. And I'm lucky enough to be one of them, and doing 14 in a row will be as precious as the first. And I've been lucky, as my friends have made me aware, no one has broadcast more in a row than me, radio or TV. I think the longest was 11 straight, and I'm sorry, 9 straight by Jack Buck. He did 8, and then they missed a couple of years. Then he did 9 in a row. So 9 was the continuous broadcasting every year of the Super Bowl. And the record, he did 8. He did 17 years of play-by-play of the Super Bowl. Buck did, Jack, and so being at 14, I guess, puts me another closer. No one's in it in the business for those kinds of things. But my friends have made me aware, since Buck is a voice that I grew up listening to in St. Louis, and very important to me as a kind of a mentor from a distance. And by the way, Jack Buck has been as nice to my dad and to me as anybody in this business. He was a wonderful man. And of course, Joe and I are friends going back to our days at Fox. And so I see a lot of Jack and Joe, actually. I see a lot of his dad and him. And I think about Jack Buck and what he did. and being in that chair on those Super Bowl Sundays a lot.
It's one of the common things that we do at ESPN in the newsroom. It'll be do Jack Buck 3rd and 10. It's a sure passing down, handoff to Okoye, loss of 2. What happened there, Hank?
Sometimes he would delay the call and make Hank look good. He would say, Hank, what do you see here? You're looking to the right. All right, here's the handoff. And it's to the right, Hank, just like you said.
Okay, 2 more real quick. If you gave Reggie Miller 10 open threes, how many would he make today?
10. He shoots. He told me that on off days he would shoot 500 and have to make 500 threes when he played. And then on off days, he would shoot well over 1,000. And he'd say, I have to make at least 900 of them. I mean, there's a reason why Ray Allen and Reggie Miller and now Steph, what they are, because they practice. I mean, that's it. Like with all of us, the more you do it, the better you are. And they practiced incessantly.
And the last thing, and I have no idea what we're doing. I don't know if we're going to dinner or doing a broadcast. I have no idea. I just want to know, Joe Namath or Trent Green?
Joe Namath is the first person at the network level I worked with at NBC. My first NFL NBC game was with Joe Namath. Not a kinder man. Trent Green is a Kansas Cityan and has become a very good friend, as has Rich Gannon, who I worked with for 7 years. All these guys, they become friends. They become Trevor, they're people you work with, but they become friends. And I've been lucky enough to work with nice people. Doc Rivers, worked with him. Doug Collins, worked with Doug Collins for 7 years at TNT. I love all these people. Reggie Miller I've worked with for all these years. These have become friends. I would hope that they would both come and I'd buy.
I think I'd just be afraid to be out with Joe Namath. That's just me. I don't know that I'm man enough to keep up. Trent Green, I think I could just hang with, but I just don't know where. I'm afraid that Joe Namath might run some things I haven't seen on the film. Whereas I feel like Trent might be staying to the game side.
Let me tell you, he is. It's like have dinner with Paul Hornung, right? Like it's like who I've had dinner with in De Pere at the hotel, the
Union Hotel.
Thank you very much, the Union, and Kim, who runs it.
Sure, Kim.
Yep. So I you're more enamored with who they are. To them, they're just having dinner with John Anderson and Trevor and me, and we're sitting there and talking football, and that's what they're all about.
Well, we've talked football and we've talked way, way, way too long, and it's too bad because I feel like we should be talking for another 2 hours. But I appreciate your time. We appreciate you joining us, and I've said it before personally. I think you're the standard, and there are a lot of us that maybe you didn't know what you were doing at 86 in terms of affecting people. I hope you did know that you were, you're in your kindness. But there are a lot of us that kind of consider us in some small way part of the Kevin Harlan tree. And I appreciate that. And thanks for being with us today.
I'm humbled by those. Thank you, John. I'm humbled by what you just said. Thank you very much. Privileged to be on with you and Trevor. Thank you so much. Thanks for having my family on too. My dad and my daughter, they have always talked about these moments with you, and everything they described is correct. It's been an honor and a pleasure and a real privilege to be on with you. Thank you.
So he told that story about the first time he did the call of the person running on the field and how it was a little dicey because he didn't know if the NFL was going to accept that or not. But what a legendary call that was, and all the rest of the calls that Kevin Harlan has brought to life for us. Man.
You're good when people recall your calls for actual sporting greatness and other people that were sporting adjacent that shouldn't have been there, right? Like that's when you know you've really that's quite a career when you've done that. And here's another one, right? Like, I just feel like sometimes I feel like, wow, we've talked to an hour and a half, and we've scratched the surface, right? Like, I just feel like there's just so much more there that you just sit around and entertain, ask about, what about just here's a name, go, and I think it'd be fascinating. But listen,
maybe it's because of the business
show,
that
we just say on this show, the Harlans never disappoint.
Ever.
So,
are we good now? There's a VO Harlan in Madison that we could probably talk to, but I think there's got to be another. There's brothers, you never know what it is. Yeah, I think at some point
there's got to be somebody else. But for now, I think we're 3 for 3.
Are you like me that you can hear an announcer and pin who he is or who she is? Do you have that ability too? Clearly you obviously do, right?
At all, right? To hear that person, you go bang. I feel like
Yeah.
that's more like the old game, Name That Tune. Like, how many words does that person have to say before you realize who it is?
Not many for him.
By the
He's
way, I'd
very
beat you in
iconic.
that game.
Ooh.
If
Well,
we played that, yeah.
if it was a Wisconsin edition, I think I'd go toe to toe, but not nationally. No, I have no chance.
I don't know. Listen, I just texted up Levering and my boy Fonzo Ellis doing a game the other night. They were doing they didn't have Marquette, did they? All I know is I'm like, hey, you guys are great. Good to see you. Talk faster. The Missouri game's coming on. So I didn't want him to bleed over. So I got a note back from both Jeff and from Fonz, a wonderful guy. If you don't know LaFonz Wellis, one of the world's greatest human beings and the best smelling human being you'll ever meet. So yeah, but I don't know. I bet I still feel like I'd do all right.
I would go. We're gonna have to figure that out here this year on how to play that game.
Sure.
Funny. All right, let's play another game. John, Wisconsin, the Tales of J.A. What's up?
So usually you always put me on the one shot, but I need you to stick with me here on this.
I was just about to put you on the one shot. Good. Okay. You got it here.
So we'll try to make this as quick as I can because I'm thinking of Kevin Harlan. I'm thinking of high school broadcasters where he started Promontory. And I used to do the PA for Southwest. I told you that. Football and basketball, junior and senior years. I had the whole DeKaiser thing. Anyway, so the guy who gave me that job was a fellow named Carl Sunby. I don't know if you know the name, but Carl Sunby, who was the longtime athletic director at Southwest. Okay. Mr. Sunby, who, gosh, he's passed away a dozen years or so now. He was, he was old when I knew him when he did that. But he had coached at East High School, coached basketball there, coached a really good player that eventually became like our gym teacher when we were in junior high at Lombardi. But everything went through Coach. You still call him Coach Sunby, Carl Sunby. So he gives me the job. He said, yes, you can do that. And the next year he came back and he's like, we'd like you to make sure you don't like take $1 from somebody and say ET phone home and do some of those things. But he came and he started after he got done coaching basketball at East High School. He started basically the athletic programs when they opened Southwest High School. And he was the longtime athletic director. And he was he reffed games all the time. Just he's involved in everything. And then most importantly, he taught driver's ed. So Carl Sunby is the guy who taught us all to drive. We took driver's ed in the summer from Carl Sunby. And I still use his words today when I give broadcasting lectures because he'd say, listen, you have your driver's license now, you're 16. And in 10 years, you'll know how to drive. Because it takes that long to see everything and experience those things. And so I tell people like the same thing. Hey, you come out of J school and you have your tools, but in 10 years, you'll know what you're doing because you'll have seen everything. So here's what you need to know about Carl Sunby. Okay. His first job out of college and his first coaching job was at Johnson Crick.
What?
And he led the Blue Jays to their first state baseball appearance in 1953.
What? That's amazing. Look at that.
There you go.
No
Carl
way.
Sunby, whose first job after he got out of college, he went to a little town called Johnson Crick. 1949. And in 1953, he led the Blue Jays to their very first baseball state tournament appearance. And in 56, then he moved to East High School.
My head is spinning right now. I wonder if my grandfather, obviously
Carl
he's gone.
Sunby. Write it down. Because now you I was going to say, now you got people you're going to have to go talk to.
Yeah, I am. This is amazing. That's amazing.
That's for you, bud.
And you said it perfectly.
Just for
Johnson
you.
Crick. Man. Brownie points for JA today. Look at that. Carl Sunby. 49?
So, got there in 1949 and the 1953 team, which was, I went and checked. That's the first time Johnson Crick went to a baseball state tournament. They've had success since then, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. They've been pretty good. Yeah, but he's our man. Yeah, Mr. Sunby.
That's awesome. Look at you. Proud Blue Jay alum right here. Third gen, man. My grandfather was probably there. Man, I got to do the math on that, but I'm almost certain that is around the time where my grandpa.
We'll give you time to come to grips with this. And then once you find out, if you do, then go over to Southwest where you can go to the Carl Sunby Gymnasium because it's named after him.
No kidding. That's cool. Oh, good for you, man. Thanks for that. That brightened my day a little bit. Cool. J.A., somehow you have a connection to Johnson Crick. Who knew other than me?
I do. He also taught driver's ed down there too, by the way. Yeah, he just probably did it in Model T Fords or whatever the hell they were driving.
Right. All right, before we go in this episode, another little jaunt. Look at, I did that right this time. Another little jaunt across the state of Wisconsin for me with our friends at Farm and Fleet. This time on Deeper Roots, to kick off the year, we go supper clubbing, J.A. We went to the Del Bar. Del Bar in Wisconsin Dells, 80 years. This has been in that family. And when you think supper club, I know that you and I went back and forth on the whole salad bar thing and what's up with that. But when you hear Wisconsin Supper Club, what are like the top 3 menu items that you think of?
Oddly enough, I don't think of menu items. I think of sort of all the things that surround it. I think of, okay, like there's kind of a bar when you walk in, right before you go. But it's, I know you're like, well, of course, every place has got a bar, but it's just got a different feel. It's more of a homey bar, like you're almost invited into someone's home. So I think of that, somebody getting an old fashioned. And then, and this is the thing that drives me nuts when I go out, even nicest places here, I don't ever get a great relish tray. I want the crackers. I need the cheese, right? The Kakana spreadable cheese. Maybe even you got a little pate. I want my crinkle cut carrots, right? The sweet gherkin. So whenever we go back, and my daughter, who loves to go to even though she's 20, but since the time she was 5, like, are we going to go to the Union Hotel? Because she just wants to just fill up on the relish tray. And I've given up. I'm like, don't eat all that. You're going to waste your. Doesn't matter. Like it's such, a losing argument. So those are the things that actually kind of hit me. It's the kind of pre-game stuff.
And we all think of fish fries when it comes to supper clubs, of course, in Wisconsin. However, this one is not known for fish. They are known for steaks. And I literally asked, excuse me, you'll hear, I said, what am I going to know when it comes to the steak? And they said, it'll be the best steak you've ever had. And I put it to the test. You're about to see it. Deeper Roots with our friends at Blaine's Farm and Fleet. We are headed to the Wisconsin Dells. Stop it at the Del Bar. This is the first time I've ever walked into a supper club and actually sat at a table with a glass of water. It's horribly uncomfortable.
We can get you a cocktail.
Yeah, we will be getting me a cocktail. And I might make it myself, as a matter of fact.
Perfect.
Farmers, brewers, hunters, packers, badgers, cheeseheads, neighbors. No matter what name we go by, we are bound together by our roots. These are the people, the stories, and the statriotism from inside Wisconsin. Welcome to Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet. 18 episodes, 19 episodes, too long. Finally, we're in a supper club. Amy and Ann, we're at the Del Bar in Wisconsin Dells. 3rd generation owners of the Del Bar, and those are the deep roots that we like to talk about on the show. So what was it, I guess, about what you grew up with here that you're like, yeah, this is something we're going to keep doing?
It was a family business, started with our grandparents in 1943. They ran it into the late 70s, and then our dad and his wife ran it up until about 2018, and then they called us and said, we're going to sell the Del Bar. And that just kind of stuck pretty deep. How do we ever walk back in those doors if our family doesn't own the restaurant? Because we have so many family traditions and memories of this place, and growing up and working here. Ended up buying it almost 6 years ago.
And everything's going strong.
Yes, everything's going great.
80 years strong. 1943 was Grandma and Grandpa?
Yep.
What was it called when they first bought the place?
It was called Del Bar, which is a name because it was halfway between the Dells and Baraboo. And then he changed it when they bought it in 1943 to Jimmy's Del Bar. Our grandpa passed away, his name was Jimmy, in the late 80s. Our dad decided to take the Jimmy's off of it and call it the Del Bar.
You just blew my mind. I had no idea that it was about the Wisconsin Dells and Baraboo.
There was
Anything.
nothing around.
Yeah.
It was a little log cabin roadside place.
What I hear you saying is the Wisconsin Dells built around the Del Bar.
No hotels, no water parks, no nothing.
How old's the building?
1938, when the 2 gentlemen that started it. And then every addition was designed by one of Frank Lloyd Wright's students.
Now that you say Frank Lloyd Wright, you can totally see it. Wow, do you see it now from the outside of the building and the angles and all of it?
We have ideas to expand. As a matter of fact, right now we're putting a bar in the lobby, and we're extending the entire entryway to a new lobby bar lounge.
Tell me you're a Wisconsin supper club without telling me you're a Wisconsin supper club. Oh yeah, we're putting a bar in the lobby.
Right, exactly. Our bar is so busy. We have a line out the door most weekdays for happy hour of 50 people deep that are trying to get into the bar.
What does Wisconsin supper club mean to you? How do you define that?
I think it's a place that's only open for dinner or supper. It's got a bar that is a place where you go to meet people and talk to them, and we can't tell you how many times that people come in and they say, you know, at the end of the night, I just met the most interesting people.
Gotta have a good old fashioned. You're not rushing either. You know, you're gonna go sit at the bar and have a drink before dinner and socialize and then go to your table and
Maybe go back for a
drink
grasshopper.
after.
All right, behind the bar with Mary. Mary, what's going on? Oh, it feels good to be back here.
I'm going to show you how to make a drink.
I like it. All right, first things first, 28 years you've been here?
28.
How come?
I love this place. It's been great to me.
What do you love about it?
Family. It's a family place. And these are grandma's recipes.
Yeah.
And the granddaughters own it now. And they're kicking butt and taking names.
Yeah,
It's
they
great.
are. Wisconsin Supper Club.
Yep.
What does it mean to you as the bartender here?
This is a fine dining restaurant. The drinks, like an old fashioned, is a very Wisconsin drink, especially with brandy.
Do you get offended when people ask for whiskey in their old fashioned?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I'll make it with anything, but
Let's
tell
make
me how you want it.
I want a whiskey old fashioned sweet with olives. Can I dabble with you?
Absolutely. We need a lemon twist.
Lemon twist, the
That's-
Rhine.
And traditionally, in a lemon twist, you give it a little rub on the glass and twist it.
Ooh.
So you do a little blast of lemon in it.
Blast of lemon. Sugar?
Sugar.
I knew that.
Some places put in more.
How many shakes of the old bitters?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whatever goes in that count.
Whatever. Yeah, we believe you. We believe you. I think you know what you're doing.
You're doing a sweet.
I'm doing a sweet.
All right.
Splash of sweet.
Splash so we can
Oh,
muddle.
there's the muddle.
Now we're trying to break that lemon up a little more, dissolve that sugar, which is already a simple dissolving sugar.
Ice. Got it.
Okay.
Coldest drink in town right
You
there.
want it over. Now we're doing whiskey.
Whiskey, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, measure it out so people
I'm a
don't
measure.
get nuked.
I learned with a jigger, that's how I do it. Now, I got to get an orange and a cherry in there, so that's the traditional.
I have one more request, and I'm hoping you don't hit me.
Okay, bring it.
A grasshopper.
Well, I got to go back to the ice cream parlor here. Are you coming with?
Yeah. Am I coming with? You said ice cream.
Trick is the ice cream, because this is what makes it taste great.
Yeah. It has nothing to do with the liqueur.
That's the same no matter what in the bottle.
Oh, are you saying it's the kind of ice cream?
Yes.
Are you going to let us know what it is, or probably not?
Well,
Trade secret?
I don't think it's my place to tell you, but it's delicious. So I'm looking at a
What'd you just put in there?
green cream to mint,
Green cream to mint.
and then the white cream to cocoa. This is what gets you the old,
The rosy cheeks, is that what you're saying?
no, the back here in the,
Oh, that. I got it. Whipped cream?
we make it ourselves here.
Of course you do. A little drizzle. Oh, you're perfect. Perfect.
Just need you a straw and we're in business.
Oh, Mary, you're good at your job.
It's been fun.
I'll see you after dinner for that grasshopper. I promise.
I'll put it on the freezer for you.
So, family traditions, family ownership, 3 generations, but you're sisters and you work together. So, I would assume that you have different roles here at the Del Bar and try not to kill each other. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, for sure. We like to divide and conquer, for
Yes.
sure. And Amy actually went to college for restaurant and hotel management, so she's got the expertise specifically for the restaurant business. So she's really front of the house, manages the staff, and I've been working more on the operations. Good
Oh.
cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you don't have to talk.
Exactly.
You get to be the good cop and you
Yeah.
have to be the bad cop. Okay, rapid fire question
Yeah.
time. Is it dinner or supper?
Dinner. It's supper if you're in South Dakota.
Whiskey or brandy in an old fashioned?
For me, whiskey,
I'm a
but
whiskey.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think a
a
lot,
lot
of people are brandy.
Yeah.
If I said take me around the garden, what does that mean?
Everything in it: mushroom, onion, olive, Brussels sprout.
Whatever you got.
Yeah.
If there was something to someone watching or listening that had never been here before, how do you say it? Come to the Del Bar in 7 words or less.
If you want to have the best steak of your life, come to the Del Bar.
Best steak of your life.
Del Bar.
Del Bar.
Yeah.
There you go.
So if I'm gonna have the best steak of my life, what am I ordering?
Ribeye, what would you normally order?
Does it look like I'm picky with food? I do like ribeye. That is my go-to.
I love a
So
New York strip.
I'd have a New York strip.
Oh man, I never get that. Why?
Okay.
Why New York strip?
It's just got like the perfect amount of marbling in my,
Yep.
opinion. Yeah, it's got great flavor.
Really
and
good.
it's still tender.
Not too fatty.
Yeah.
You might change me today.
With a little bone marrow butter on there.
Bone marrow butter? Didn't expect to get cultured today,
Yeah.
but here we are. All right. If you could hold on to the tradition maybe 2 or 3 things, what is it that you really go, wow, this is something that we can never give up?
Number one, our employees. We've got employees that have been with us for 20, 30 years. You come here and you get this level of service from our employees that really care and enjoy being here. I mean, we're really nothing without them. We've got this loyal staff that customers really appreciate, and they say it all the time. Number two is the quality of our food. You'll find all of our steaks are prime grade. I don't think there's another supper club in the state of Wisconsin that serves prime grade beef.
And a great gathering place for people where they can come into a spot and feel very comfortable just having a happy hour in the bar or sitting down in the dining room.
That is a wrap at the Del Bar here in the Wisconsin Dells on another episode of Deeper Roots with our friends at Blaine's Farm and Fleet. Pretty quick, I'm going to drool on the food, so we're done talking. Our thanks to Amy and Ann and Mary. Wow, drinks, amazing. 28 years of making that old fashioned. We're done recording this episode. We're diving in. We'll see you next time on Deeper Roots. Adios. It's a prerequisite of these shows. Better. Man, all right, here we go. To the bar. Is it dinner or supper?
We're a supper club, but we have dinner here.
I'm confused. Just tell me, are those ice cream drinks at Payne? Yeah.
They're $600 blenders. One broke last night. I'm like, oh, again?
Should we have a moment of silence for the blender that died last night?
Locals are very good to us.
So are those pesky people from Illinois, I heard.
We love Illinois people.
Of course you do. Now there is an episode that you can sink your teeth into. Hiya! The dad jokes continue in 2024. My thanks, our thanks, everyone's thanks, let's be honest. Anybody that's ever stepped foot in Del Bar. Amy and Mary, you're killing it. We had a blast. Thank you for the best steak of my life. Make a trip to Del Bar Supper Club. Check them out online, del-bar.com. Also, you can head to our website and fill out the form to become our next story featured here on Deeper Roots. It's farmandfleet.com/Deeper Roots. And of course, don't forget to like and comment below, smash subscribe if you're here on YouTube, and if you're listening on the podcast side, leave us a 5-star review. Cheers. We'll see you next time.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Remember to subscribe on YouTube, leave a review, smash the like button, just get with us.
The Inside Wisconsin Show is brought to you by American Family Insurance, Aaron's Company, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, Capital Credit Union, Festival Foods, Quick Trip, Miller Lite, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, and the University of Wisconsin-Platteville.
Shut up and sit down.